let's begin. So.
We're Family Care Trust. We are a charity and registered company based in Solihull in the West Midlands. At our main site, Newlands Bishop Farm, we provide work-based learning for adults with learning disabilities. We have about 130 on our books, around 100 every day attending the farm. As part of our learning, we do talk about sustainability and animal care and horticulture a lot. Obviously, we're an operational farm. The heart of our message to all our project workers is we need to be sustainable. We need to know how to live off the land, and that's also good for your own home. Our growth and expansion as a charity has gone pretty much in line with rising energy costs. Recently, we've increased our capacity by about 30% in terms of people we have on site every day. So if you couple that with energy costs, all of a sudden, we're using a lot more energy. It's costing us a lot more daily. So that's been a real struggle to make sure we're very stable in an uncertain time. So we were recommended to the Decarbonisation Net Zero programme by a contact in local government who we have quite close ties with. When our energy advisor came to visit us, we weren't really sure what to expect, but it was actually super easy. They came, they weren't disruptive at all. We just had a small chat and then a little walk around all the key areas of the farm which might be affected by the measures that we were going to talk about. So the energy assessment revealed the scale of measures that we could implement. We were recommended two different measures, one to do with the heating system and the solar panels. We did choose the solar panels and we might pursue heating measures at a later date. We're expecting a huge kickback which could save us over £1 million over the next 20 years, and we weren't quite sure of the extent of that before our meeting. For the whole installation of 192 solar panels on the roof of our building, it cost just under £80,000. We were match funded half of that, which came to £38,800 from the grants programme. The grant application process was very easy and, in my experience, quite quick. We felt very supported, so great process.
Right, okay. So that is just basically kind of a quick scoop through the overall kind of process. What we'll do here is just talk in a little bit more detail, but the key bit from you three guys is that with the energy assessment, regardless, as you can see, this particular one was a care home, but as I say, we've supported galleries, we've done numerous manufacturing organisations. So the energy assessor basically kind of comes out, has a kind of a guided sort of tour around the actual kind of premises. We'll discuss if there's any kind of key sort of issues. We'll also then just kind of look at three things generally. So we're looking at the building itself, what can actually be potentially done there. We're looking at internal processes, and then any kind of relevant machinery and equipment that relates to that. So within the video that you've just been watching, you've seen that the premises, they obviously kind of were able to kind of take care of themselves. They got some small workshop space. They also had cooking and kitchen kind of space, in addition to the overall kind of premises where they're doing sort of training and kind of work with the community. So we would be kind of looking at all of that from a point of view of understanding what potentially could be undertaken with them. So again, some of the buildings we've kind of looked at have been much older, so the recommendations can kind of go from double glazing, insulation, that kind of stuff within it, sort of changing doors, as well as internal heating processes. And then with equipment, is it the most efficient? Are they using sort of quite old cookers, fridges, freezers in this particular kind of case, the stuff that could be updated there. having gone round and actually then looked at the premises overall, what we'll do is put together a detailed report which will then itemize the different areas, and each of the recommendations is basically then kind of detailed out, and some estimate costs are put through within that. So what I've got here on screen is a shot from the early stage of the report. So we've got, and there could be any number of recommendations. In this particular case, there was two kind of key areas that were made, but it could have been anywhere between one and however many, 10, 15, 20. Typically, most businesses you'd be looking at, depending on the complexity of the organization, so generally between kind of 3 to 8 or 9 would be on average, but you can get an awful lot more than that. So as part of the overall assessment, we'd need to get copies of, well, either connect to the utility provider if it's half-hourly data, if it's a very large energy consumer, or if or just 12 months worth of previous bills, and we need those simply so that we can then actually kind of benchmark what the current energy consumption is, and then from there we can then kind of estimate what potential savings are. As you can see here, we're basically looking at savings in terms of the actual kind of energy, in terms of kilowatt hours, the monetary value of those savings, and then we put forward some and these are their estimated costs, and then from there we kind of calculate a payback period, and we'll also then kind of calculate the carbon saving. Ash will talk about this in more detail. When you come to actually kind of apply for the grant, you'll need to, whatever the recommendations are, you'll need to get 3 sets of quotes and things. So the fact that the initial kind of component within the report is our estimates is absolutely fine, because basically the report is, as I say, it's a set of recommendations, and then generally the business that provides more than enough information for the business owner to make an investment decision on how much they can afford to, what it is they want to do, understand whether there's going to be any impact or disruption in terms of getting the recommendations implemented or installed, and just generally kind of think through what's going on within the organization prior to making a decision on which of the recommendations to be implemented. And again, as the case in the video was, that and often this is down to things like cash flow and working capital. In this particular case, they've decided that they wanted to install the PV first, and then at a later point they'll then kind of consider the other recommendations in terms of the heating systems, and that's perfectly fine. These are all commercial decisions. At the end of the day, it's got to kind of help the business itself to actually help the business itself to operate. So in this kind of particular case, as you can see, we're kind of looking at estimated annual savings of over £39,500, and at the time the estimated cost to implement was just over 77,000, and as you've seen, and Ash will talk about, the business will then, you get an opportunity to then, once you've had the report completed, apply for a grant to help offset some of those recommendations on an ongoing basis. From the business's point of view, if you're looking at kind of, just in the case of the sort of solar PV sort of savings of almost sort of 40,000, and then as when they install the heating, etc., you're looking savings of over £47,000 a year are obviously quite significant. And again, the key bit that was kind of mentioned within it is that if you think about how hard it is to basically raise £47,000 worth of money to go and do something, if you can make that out of direct savings, it means that you can then reinvest that in further machinery, people, marketing, new product service development, etc. So there's an accelerated growth out of the whole thing. And for a number of businesses, having some form of carbon implementation or net zero plan often makes the difference as to whether or not they can get on a supply chain, for example, or supply to a contract. This in this case is relating to a care home. We know that within, I think it's right about sort of 2028 with the NHS, if you want to bid for contracts that are larger than 5 million, then you'll have to have a demonstrable carbon reduction plan in place simply to be allowed to tender. The report that you'll get as part of this energy assessment process is highly detailed and would be more than enough to actually form the backbone of a carbon reduction plan that you could then put forward as part of a tender proposal to supply services or products to some larger organizations. Okay, so just the numbers are there just to kind of give you an idea of the types of savings and scale. There's, without getting into the politics of it, there's a lot of misinformation out in terms of whether or not renewables and being sustainable is cost effective for businesses. We've done literally sort of thousands of energy assessments now, and categorically they are. There's simply no question about it. And each set of recommendations will be costed on an individual basis for your company. So, okay. So why are we doing it and what's actually going on? The UK government has got its own set of net zero targets, and when they were looking at how they could basically help small businesses in order to inform policy, etc., there was kind of surprisingly very little information out there about the best ways to actually support small businesses. There've been a lot of programs, but no one had ever actually kind of recorded the data to actually kind of work out what was more effective and what wasn't. So given the lack of information to inform policy, what they did was they basically kind of commissioned their own pilot program that was set up in the West Midlands. Because of the diversity of businesses that are there, you've got manufacturing, you've got services, you've got retail. So it was a very representative sample area. Aston University is leading a kind of consortium of partners to help with the delivery of that pilot program. So the encouragement to capture the data, which is what the government needs to do at the end of the day, is kind of twofold. So one, the energy assessment that you get is paid for by the government, so it's completely free, doesn't cost you a penny, and provides a lot of detailed information. And in order to encourage businesses to actually then go and implement those recommendations, they've provided some grants support, which is very generous, and as I say, the guys from Birmingham City Council will kind of give you more detail on that. So that's the reason that it's happening. And as with all pilot programs, there's a start and an end point. So the current one is finishing at the end of March 2026. We're not sure yet what else will be happening then. Government's got to kind of make up its mind on how it wants to implement the policy and the learnings from within all of that. But the current pilot program is running through to end of March 2026. So you've got just on 6 months to get involved. as I say, the reason for looking at the West Midlands is there's a lot of challenges within the area with manufacturing, etc. We've got quite a diversity of businesses in the region, and also the UK, rather unfortunately, basically suffers some the highest business energy costs in the world. So clearly something needs to be done to help kind of support that, which is basically what the government's doing. Okay. So as I was detailing, you will get a fully kind of costed, highly detailed kind of report. This will probably apply more to you guys during the manufacturing kind of talks, but there's effectively two types of energy assessment. One is for what's known as sort of standard businesses, and the other one is for what are known as energy intensive businesses. To be classified as energy intensive, you need to be consuming more than 750,000 kilowatt hours of energy a year, which sounds like a lot, but we have got a number of small businesses that we've supported that have consumed millions of kilowatt hours a year. So the 750,000 benchmark is, we've got a number of businesses that have easily surpassed that. Okay. Right, in order to get involved, you basically you need to be an SME, so a small medium enterprise. That's the usual criteria. So from the European side of things, under 50 million euro turnover and balance sheet of less than sort of 43 million, which actually we need to change our slide. It translates to about 42 million in sterling in turnover, and around about sort of 38 million in balance sheet assets. Need to be basically employing less than 250 people as full-time equivalents, so that's 249 or lower, and you basically need to be located within somewhere within the West Midlands. Aston's leading on delivery of energy intensives with our other partners across the whole of the West Midlands, and for the standards we are kind of lead partner with our other partners on the combined authority area. So that's Birmingham, Solihull, Coventry, and the Black Country. So if you kind of are located in any of those areas and you fit the basic criteria, we can support you. The other area is that there's got to be a minimum of 25,000 kilowatt hours of energy consumption for your business to qualify. So again, that's part of the reason why we need the energy bills from kind of previous 12 months, just to help kind of establish that benchmark and just make sure that the businesses that are applying fit within that those eligibility criteria. So the how to get involved, the overall kind of process is pretty simple. We'll put up at the end of the thing, there's you go to the registration page on the Business Growth West Midlands website, fill out the details. It literally kind of takes a few minutes. Once you've actually sent those, submitted those, they come through to us at Aston University, and depending on where you're based, they're disseminated to different partners. If you're in Birmingham or Solihull, then you'll be talking to us, and so we'll kind of contact you as soon as we've got that information through, and have a chat with you again, just to basically establish the kind of information that I was detailing previously. We'll then arrange for a time to come out and do the on-site energy assessment, capture the information that's kind of required, and then we'll take that lot away, and that will turn into the recommendation report itself, which you can then obviously sit and look through, and a lot of the clients kind of then come back and talk to us about what's in it, how, where potentially what to kind of prioritize, that kind of thing, and or if they want to make any particular kind of changes within the actual thing. It's very much a collaborative thing. It's not us just kind of dictating to you what's going on. Once you've got the actual report itself, then at that stage you're then eligible to apply for a grant. Again, it's not compulsory if you don't want to. If you want to go ahead and fund the whole thing yourself, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, the vast majority of the businesses that we deal with, they do go ahead and apply for the grant. And as there's some basic due diligence in terms of obviously understanding that the business is kind of sound and solvent. But to be perfectly honest with you, the actual, once the recommendations have kind of gone through and those make some sense from a cost point of view, there's generally very little in the way of difficulties or kind of deterrents in terms of actually applying for the grant. But as I say, the guys will kind of come to that shortly. We can kind of cover pretty much anything that's needed. It is a holistic view. We happen to be talking about solar here just to help people going to get a feel for what might the costs be, what would the payback period be, what the kind of energy savings, which you've seen in the earlier part of things. But we can, as I said, kind of cover a wide variety of things relating to heating, lighting, the building itself, updating machinery, ventilation, manufacturing kind of processes, you name it. There's very little that's actually off limits within the program. The only other thing to say is that in terms of the solar side of things is that there is a excuse me, there's a cap of £50,000 grant award for the solar panels themselves, the solar panel installation. If the installation includes additional batteries, etc., then that's outside of that 50,000 cap, but all of it falls within the 100,000 sort of maximum grant that's available. So in terms of the actual solar panels themselves, the maximum grant that can be awarded is 50,000. Okay. We've got, as you can see, other kind of case studies. There's we'll send you a link. There's a number of video case studies up on YouTube, kind of covering a wide variety of businesses and backgrounds, and savings can range from a few thousand up to, as we saw in the previous kind of case study, many tens of thousands. We've got a number of businesses that have sort of, on implementing the recommendations, have been able to save in the order of 40% on their energy bills, which is obviously, depending on the business, that can be really quite significant in terms of what's the impact that in terms of operational costs. Let's say we've supported over 1,800 businesses, so that means there's over 1,800 businesses that have had a visit, had an energy assessment report, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but a substantial number of those have then gone on and successfully applied for grants to help offset the costs of installing that sort of stuff. I'll kind of stop from here, hand over. If you've got any, I'll stop sharing in a sec. If you've got any questions, and please raise your hand or just shout out, and we'll email you separately. But you've got the sort of registration. As I say, all businesses basically register on the Business Growth West Midlands BEAS page, fill out the details, hit submit, and then we'll get in contact with you. Okay. Right. I'll stop sharing that, and if there's any kind of related
Thank you for
questions.
that.
If not, then I'll hand over to Ash at Birmingham.
Thank you, Martin. No, thank you. I think it's probably a good time to have a very brief couple of minutes to see if any of
Sure.
our colleagues, Kevin, Colin, or Gary, do you have any questions on any aspects of Martin's presentation before we move on to how you can access the grants to implement the recommendations in the energy audit as Martin's highlighted? Okay, excellent. I'm just going to share my screen and let's have a look. Okay. I'm hoping you all can see my presentation.
Yep, it's
Yeah, can see that. Yep.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. No,
Yep.
Unlike Martin's, unfortunately, ours is not that razzmatazzy. We don't have a video, so it's a straightforward walkthrough, a PowerPoint presentation. I think, if I'm honest, Martin has covered 80% of what I wanted to talk about. So I think I'm just going to talk to you about the crucial bits and pieces and just whiz through some of the stuff that Martin's already discussed. So not to sort of repeat some of that. And so the aim of the presentation is to provide you some information on how you can access the grants from Birmingham City Council and to implement the recommendations of the energy audit. Okay, I think the program, as per the energy audit, also offers the grant only to SMEs. So the grant is only available to SMEs. So you must be a registered SME. So it's not available to larger companies and companies that don't fit the SME criteria. Okay, so the BEAS program, so the Business Energy Advice Service program is a combination of two things. First and foremost, and I think the gateway to accessing the grant is to have an energy audit done. And I say this all the time to all the businesses that I meet and I talk with. Even if you do not intend to implement your energy audit or within the next sort of 12 months, 2 years, please have the energy audit undertaken. It's very, very important. Going forward as a country, we are looking to decarbonize all aspects of our commercial environment, as well as our domestic sort of houses. So this will be very, very hot when it comes to the future of decarbonization, decarbonizing our country. So please, if you don't intend to have the grants now, maybe financially you feel that you want to wait, still have the energy audit undertaken. It's valid for 2 years. So what's on offer? I think Martin's picked up on a lot of this here. So grants up from 1,000 up to £100,000. For example, I think solar panels were mentioned earlier. If the overall cost of your solar panels are £200,000, we will provide a grant of £100,000. This is a peer grant. It's not a payback, or it's not a loan or anything like that. It's not a soft loan. It's a peer grant from the government to help you as a business and to help the country and the economy overall to decarbonize. Match funding, obviously, we can only provide you a maximum grant of 50%. There is a cap on some elements of what you can implement. I think Martin's already mentioned that, for example, solar panels, the maximum grant you can access is £50,000. Okay. And another very, very crucial point to mention, actually, the grant program comes to an end March next year. And beyond March, at the moment, DESNZ, which is the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, they've given us an indication they will not be continuing with this program. Whether they have something else in the pipeline or there's something else cooking up in the behind the scenes that we're not aware of, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows at this stage. But once this grant program comes to an end March next year, there is nothing on the horizon that I can see or we can see. So if you are going to benefit from the grant, please do things and do them quickly. Time is running out. Yeah, so Colin, let's have a look. Sorry, let me open my chat. I think Colin's asked a very good question. Yes, you need to implement the program or the project before March. So if you are going to apply now, get the energy audit done. From when you register for an energy audit and the application, it could take between 2 months to 3 months. Okay, so Martin's team will come out, undertake the energy audit, which will then unlock an application for you to apply for this grant program. And obviously, as Martin mentioned, you will need to go through some due diligences with Aston University and ProEnviro. And then you will apply, and then there's a process of due diligence with us as well, and appraisal process, which could take a number of weeks. So you need to apply, get an FA from us, a funding agreement from us, start your project, implement your project before the end of March. Everything needs to be cleared before that. So it's a very good question, Colin. Thank you for that. Okay. So again, so eligibility criteria, some of this we've already discussed. So you must use a minimum of 25,000 kilowatt hours of energy, electricity or gas per year, and in the last 12 months, which annually costs 6,800. I don't think we've come across any company that uses less than that effectively. I think we use close to that in our house if you look at the combined gas and electric bills. So that's a no-brainer, really. So you must be a commercial entity or a profit-seeking enterprise. This is where I think earlier one of our guests is part of a charitable trust, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is where something that we will need to look into to see whether you're eligible to seek the grant. But I think on the whole, yes, it should be okay. So you should be operating from a commercial address and be responsible for paying your energy bills. We do get calls now and again from people who are in a larger premises or a larger industrial estate where they have a very small part of it, and what they pay, the rent they pay, also pays towards the energy bill. So the landlord is responsible for. Unfortunately, under those circumstances, we will not be able to fund that particular business. So you must be a energy bill payer directly. Okay. And be active for at least 12 months. So this is for existing businesses. So we can't fund new startups under this program. And the payback period, as Martin mentioned earlier, so the calculation, for example, if the solar panels are going to cost you £200,000, your payback period on those solar panels must be a minimum of 2 years. We do come across, I don't think the minimum payback period has ever been an issue for us. The issue arises when the payback period is 20, 30, 40 years beyond the life of the product being purchased. So if you are buying a piece of machinery and the lifespan of the machine is 15 years, and the payback period is 20 years, we've come across that situation, and it's very, very difficult for us then to make a positive decision as whether to fund that. So minimum payback period is 2 years, but there is a maximum, an unwritten rule, so a maximum payback period cannot exceed the life of the item that is being purchased. Okay, so please bear that in mind. Some of this we've already discussed. Solar panels, I've mentioned earlier. Of course, it's a 50% intervention rate, but government, in their wisdom, I wouldn't have done it this way if I was designing this program. I wouldn't put caps like this on, but the government has decided to put a cap on the maximum that is applicable, or maximum grant payable for a solar panel installation is £50,000. But all the other items within that list are not, they're not restricted to any ceiling limit on the amount of grant you can access. Also, if the energy audit recommends all of these items, for example, the 8-9 items that I've got listed here, you can apply for all of those under the same application form. to implement these. So it's not restricted to one item too. So you can implement all of the recommendations or some of the recommendations of the energy audit. Purely because we recognize some businesses do not have the cash flow or the financial capacity to implement all recommendations. So you can recommend all, some, or one of the recommendation, depending on your forecasting, your financial capacity, depending on your needs, your immediate needs, long-term, short-term needs. So we're very flexible on that. Okay. Right, local authority. Martin had a map up on one of his slides about the area. So we do cover a very, very large area. So effectively, it's all of the West Midlands. We go a little bit north as well. These are the areas. So if your business premises or your business is located in any of these areas, in terms of location, you will be eligible to receive a grant from this program. Okay. So just about the 4-stage application process. Obviously, you would, after this presentation, please, there are some contacts at the end of my presentation. Please make a note of these and immediately contact Martin and his team. Get an energy audit booked from either Aston University or ProEnviro. Okay, so pre-appraisal process. So obviously, the process, the gateway to the process is to get the energy audit. Once you have an energy audit, that will allow you access to the grant. You would apply for that, and from the day you apply to the day you receive a funding agreement, it could take 4 to 6 weeks. We have turned around projects much quicker than that. I recall one was for 2 weeks, but those are small scale projects. It just depends on the complexity of the project that you are presenting. If it's quite a detailed, large project, obviously the appraisal process is slightly different, and it's slightly shorter. And if it's a larger project where you are seeking grant of 30,000 plus, then obviously it's a slightly longer process, a slightly more in-depth due diligence, financial due diligence, as well as all the other due diligences that we undertake. But it's very, very rare that we go beyond 6 months. Hence why I say to you earlier, I said earlier that you really need, if you are looking to benefit from this grant program, benefit from a free energy audit, please do it quickly and do it or implement your project before early next year. Get your project done and dusted or within your timescale around February time. Okay. Submitting your application, just some hints and tips. Please use the support that's available to you, definitely from the Growth Hub. The Growth Hub contact details will be available at the end of the presentation. Please contact the Growth Hub, ask them or discuss your proposals with them. They can then obviously offer you the best advice. We have an extensive guidance notes on the application process. Please read those before you start filling the application in. Every point or every question within the application form has an extensive guidance on what sort of information we are looking for to support you to fill that section in, which satisfies our requirements and also supports you in providing all the relevant information that we require in order to process your application. Of course, there's a checklist at the back of the application, which is quite an extensive checklist, which lists all the items or all the sundry and the additional information we require in order to process your application. Okay, my advice for you would be to please go through all of that before you start filling in the application. It will be a much easier process for you. Just some technicalities. Please don't use any special characters because it is an interactive application form, and we do use that application form to generate our reports. And if you do use special characters and things like that, it becomes very difficult for our systems to pick those up to automatically generate reports for us. And of course, some of these files that you will be emailing to us tend to be very large, so please zip them. It makes our work a lot easier. And also, our servers have a restriction on them on what size files they can receive. Okay. And this is our email address. So if you do have any questions in the meantime about the grant program, please make a note of this email. It's available at the end of the presentation as well. So anyway, these are the key links. I can obviously send this presentation to all of you, but the key is the one at the above. So it's birmingham.gov.uk/BEAS. So this will the website at the top has links to the Aston University Energy Audit registration form, etc., and the Pro Enviro, and also lists all the information that I've mentioned earlier on how you can access the grant to make it a smooth process for you. I think this is my last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. So if there are any questions, please fire away. If you think of a question, oh gosh, okay, sorry, I haven't been keeping tabs on this. Okay, please excuse me. I'm going to read some of the unless you want to speak. The writing's very, very small. So I'll take questions now, colleagues.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, good. No, I was absolutely scared. I thought nobody heard my presentation. I went on. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, so that'll probably be make it a little bit easier. Right. Okay. So
Ash, there's a question.
Right. There's a number of questions I can see.
Yeah.
Yep. They're coming up slowly. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so can you apply if you have had a previous grant? Now we do have so we did have BEAS 1 and BEAS 2. Yes, you can apply, providing it's obviously a different item, so you can't apply for the same thing again. I think that's a given. And there is a state aid, a UK subsidy control limit on how much grant you can access. And I'm sorry, the figures I don't have it at the top of my head, but it's about 130,000 if I'm not mistaken. So if you have
315,
300, so there you go. So thank you, Ash, for confirming that. In ERDF days, it used to be 100,000. So obviously it's gone much higher now. So UK subsidy control is around 300,000. So this is any or all access or grants or any funding that you've had from the government. There is a cap on the maximum amount. If you have not exceeded that, then yes, you can apply. Do we need 3 quotes? Yes, you do. In order to meet the conditions of our procurement, you will need to provide us 3 quotes. There is a single tender justification that we have. For example, if you are looking to purchase an item and you can only find one supplier that can provide that item, yes, there is a single tender justification for that. But in an ideal world, we will need 3 quotes in order to meet our procurement guidelines. There isn't a maximum. So Martin, thank you for pointing that. Yeah. So there isn't a maximum time for return on investment. It relates to individual recommendations, i.e. pieces of equipment or building changes, upgrades. Okay, if implementing more than one recommendation, do we need? Yes, you do, Martin. Yeah, Colin, yes, you do. You do need to provide us 3 quotes for each, because we take, obviously your project is a single project, but elements within the project, for example, if you've been recommended, I was appraising a project this morning where they are looking for solar panels, but the roof is not strong enough to accommodate the solar panels. So the energy audit has recommended 3 things. One was a insulated roof. It was a single skin roof, and solar panels, and there was a 3rd item as well. So the 3 items the applicant has applied for would require 9 quotes, 3 for each minimum. Okay. Please be mindful, solar panels lead time. There are limited solar panel suppliers within the region. And as you can imagine, they are inundated with work. So please start negotiations very early on with solar panel installers, etc., and providers. Okay, Martin is typing. Martin, do you want to come in?
Ash, can I just, sorry, if I can just come in and
point
out a point of clarification.
Yeah.
In terms of actually previous applications to grants, we've had a number of grants available to people over the years. Last year, there were 2 grants related to net zero that were running or sustainability. There was the net zero grant, and there was the business energy efficiency grant program. If you applied for net zero, that has no bearing on the current BEAS application. However, if you applied for the business energy efficiency grant program, that directly links with BEAS, and therefore your limit of total access to grant would be limited to £100,000. So if you already received 50,000, you can only go for a further 50,000 under this particular program. But if you applied for any other grant, it has no bearing on your application to BEAS at all. That's in respect of Kevin's question earlier on.
Okay, and I think there's Martin's made a very good point here. As an organization, you would be okay. So the 315,000. Okay, in the previous, so it's the current and the previous 2 years. Okay, so the 315,000 UK subsidy control applies for the current year and the past 2 years. So it's a 3-year period. Okay, that's fine. Okay, Martin, I'll hand it over to you and Ashmita, and if there's no further questions, look forward to receiving your applications, colleagues, and good luck to you all.
Great, thank you so much. Well, put some stuff in the chat. If there's any additional questions right now, then feel free to shout out. I guess, you know, as sort of stated, the key bit moving forward now is basically to kind of get your companies registered on the Business Growth West Midlands website. We'll email you out the link again. What I'll need to do is for tomorrow and the day after, sort of get my presentation arranged so we can sort of finish off on the slide with the registration link on it. Thank you, that's brilliant. Cheers, Ashmita. So yeah, to get the kind of details there within that, and then if there's any specifics kind of requirements in relation to the businesses, then we will discuss that once we're actually in contact with you. So in relation to the gallery side of stuff and storage, then obviously those are quite specific requirements. But as I say, we've worked with other museums and galleries as well. So, but we'll kind of discuss whatever kind of requirements are needed. I guess my overall advice is to keep an open mind with the I'll come back to you in a sec, Ash, with the energy assessment. I think a lot we've talked about solar panels here. It's going to give an indication, but there are just any number of opportunities for energy saving. Some of that is relating to the building or the equipment and machinery within it. Some of it's also in relation to behavioral stuff and kind of changing the way that processes and things happen within. So we've, on the manufacturing side, there's a company we went to kind of talk to, and they made, you know, they're kind of assuming that the energy saving would be within their machinery, because they had a lot of quite heavy duty sort of kit. But actually, once we've gone around and looked at the place, the main area for saving was actually their wood manufacturers, was with their extraction fans. They'd been in for a very long time, were quite old and inefficient, and were on the go constantly, essentially to kind of keep the air clear and keep a safe environment, and heavily kind of clogged up and all the rest of it. So actually there was far more energy to be saved in actually replacing the extraction fans than there was in updating the machinery. So actually that's what they decided to go ahead and do. And again, I think it was somewhere around, they got over £70,000 worth of grant towards that, and they could have saved over 40% on their energy bills. So as I say, I would kind of keep an open mind on it. Once you better to have a fully detailed set of recommendations rather than I just want to install some solar panels and get some money off, which is not an unreasonable thing. But there's often a lot more that can actually be achieved over and above simply installing some solar panels. My analogy is always you can fit renewables to the outside of an old leaky building. But if you want to really maximize what you're doing, you're better off actually making the updating the building and all the processes inside as well, and then fitting the renewables. And at that stage, you've really kind of maximized your opportunity, because if the building and the processes are operating more efficiently, then they simply need less energy in the first place, which then basically means that you can change the size of installation that you've got within the solar panels, which could potentially save you money, or you may be in a circumstance because of those changes where at different stages of the year you're in a kind of a net surplus situation. So I wouldn't think about the energy assessments purely from the point of view of just installing some solar panels. The benefits actually come from a holistic approach and looking at both the energy consumption as being as efficient and effective as possible, as well as the source of where the energy comes from. Obviously, it's great to kind of utilize the sun instead of coal and gas, but there's a lot more to it than that, and there's a lot more that can be gained from the business's point of view, and also to help in the long term with the overall business resilience in terms of just understanding how the energy is used and how to help yourselves. The problem with energy is that it's invisible, and the energy bill comes in, it kind of goes to the bookkeeper or the accountant or whatever, and it's just seen as an expense, which it is, and kind of that's that. People don't actually examine or understand how the energy itself is kind of consumed, and so that's where the energy assessment and the report will also kind of help it give you a lot of knowledge in terms of ways to help to become more resilient and gain more control over your operational costs and your overheads in relation to energy. Okay. Right, if there's no other kind of questions or anything on that, I'll stop there because I can keep wittering quite a bit. Ash.
No, thank you for that, Martin. No, it's very, very useful information. Colin, can I just ask, is this the Council's Museums depot on Dolman Street you referred to earlier?